Hi, I'm Andre Faust, back at you once again in such short a period of time. Uh, this video is going to touch on a couple ideas or themes. One is going to be a comparison between the 27th of March and the 28th. What the differences are between the two. I'm going to talk a little bit about standing waves and a bit about, well, probably quite a bit about floodplain topography alteration and what the potential problems are going to be. But before we move on, it's just, my detail and picky, and I seem to have a fixation for grass. I know you're all going to shoot me on that one there. So having, said about graphs, let's pull up the first graph, and this one here will scare you. It's a pretty scary looking graph when you look at it. Yeah, it's one of those spooky graphs. Of course, when you first look at it, it looks very, very steep, but it isn't really that bad. In the next graph, yeah, there will be another graph. We'll show you it's not all that bad. This one here, the scaling is based on 8 hours time intervals between each data point. Now, I know there's some people are wondering where I'm getting my data. I'm getting both, like the graph data and the CSV. So my source, I'm using really one hydrometric station. That's O as Oscar, 1, A as Alpha, K as kilos, 003. But what has taken place in 70 hours is that the water levels have gone up from 2.3 meters in that time period, which really isn't that drastic. In the 2018 the 2018 one, that behaved more like a flash flood. I mean, within 8 hours, we went from something around 3 point something meters to 8.6. It happened very, very quickly, but I forget the exact amount of rain that we had, but we had an awful lot of rain. The other thing is we did also have a lot of snow at that time. And there was one other variable in there. Yeah, we didn't get any cold snap. It was cold one day, and then it was above freezing, and it stayed like that. So everything worked against us in 2018. 2019, I'm not quite sure why or what happened. So, and you'll see that dotted line. That's a trend line, and of course that extends basically along the whole history, which this graph doesn't show. So moving on to this second, I'm just trying to think that I touched everything. Yeah, I think I covered everything. Yeah, 12 p.m. on the 26th is 100 hours. That's basically 12 midnight. But that's what I like about the 24-hour clock system. In that, it was at 2.05 meters, and on that 2200 on the 28th, 10 p.m., it was at 4.8 meters. So I mean, I think the graph is pretty well self-explanatory. The dips and lows are more obvious on graph 1. At the red circle, you'll notice that you see those 3 shrubs. And there's a white house there, and that road in between that is known as the fire road. So keep that in mind. That was taken on the 27th, this shot here. This one was taken on the 28th, and roughly about the same time. You'll notice that the water has now gone past the shrubs, and if you look at the fire road, it's a lot further up, and I'll just flash back, just try to embed that into your memory. So what 2.13 meters represents is what you see in front of you. So this puppy here is looking down river now. I find that that the drone does a lot better still photography than it does video, and that's because it does it in raw files. And it's just possible that I still don't have it quite down for my settings for the video part. But this is but what you're seeing there is that you can see the wind lines. I've navigated the reversing falls during the rapids themselves, during the both high and low tide for 19 years, and you learn how to read the water. So when I look at that water, it means something to me. When I see the wind lines, I see areas where there's low pressures and high pressures, all that kind of neat kind of stuff that you can only gain through experience. There's no textbooks that can tell you. But what we're having here are standing waves, and I'll talk a bit more about standing waves. Here's a close-up. Now this was taken with my DSLR camera. You can see they're kind of sharp, but there's several reasons why you get standing waves, and actually it's quite complicated, so I won't get into it. But yeah, you're looking at oscillations and resonance and all that kind of fun stuff that you know that Poindexters love. So here's another angle of the standing waves, and you can see they're sharp, and they tend to not move, or that's what it that's basically one of the characteristics. That orange thing that you see is what's called the windsock, and that tells. I find that very useful to tell me the direction of the wind. Now, for drone pilots, I mean, right now when you're looking at this photograph, it looks like that the St. John River is right at the edge of my property, and the reason why it looks that way is that when you're looking at either at a video screen or a picture, it's two-dimensional, so you lose that three-dimensional depth perception that you normally would get. And for drone operators, especially newbies, they can get themselves into trouble by misjudging distances, and in some cases it can be serious problems. And to show you the difference on the next slide, you'll see right below me the windsock, and you see where the water level is, and compare this to this. You can see that there's a big difference. I mean, even in that photograph, you can't really appreciate how high my bank is. There's about four and a half meters that the water would have to go above and even beyond to get onto my property. Well, I kept this footage. Normally I would have edited it up, but I thought the effect was so neat. Yeah, what a rush. It's like that roller coaster. But the other thing is that I'm taking a look in the background where you see a tree line way down there. That's a wetland, and so far there's no water there. This is a southeast shot of the St. John River. I'm just going to do a quick pan. Now, I'm basically following the same flight path on the 28th as I did on the 27th, and it's for comparison to show what does 2.13 meters represent relative to where I live. Future videos that I'll be doing this week, I'll be going to other locations. I may even go up to Perth to see what's happening there. So I'm approaching what we call the fire road, and that goes from Ross Terrace to the river. And as you can see, the water has risen, like in the earlier photographs where I've outlined in the red the differences between the two. But I'm going to pause the video here in a sec there, and because there's something that I want to talk about. All right, so I've been working on the floodplain topography alterations, and what's been happening over the years is that people have been filling in the floodplain. Now, as far as the hardcore government regulations are, you can alter the topography up to 30 meters from the waterway and up to 30 meters from a wetland. I've looked at the regulations. I have not seen anything that deals with the floodplain per se. Only that, if you're going to do any kind of alterations, like cutting trees or something near a waterway, you have to be 30 meters away from the water's edge or the wetland. Now, but that site. Look for details. Look at where there've been some fill. Now, the one that you're looking right at, right across with the buildings on. Now, he hasn't filled up as far as Ross Terrace. He went about half distance, and during the major floods, those buildings do get flooded. But if you look at there's his buildings, then as you scan your eyes towards the right, you'll see the other buildings. Imagine if that was all filled. What the effects of it. And one of the critiques that I have right now is that I've now communicated with the city and the province on this matter, and I'm waiting answer back from both of them. But from my research, I haven't found any extensive environment. I have, I guess, several strategies on hand if I don't get any cooperations from the city or from the province. And that, it's quite simple. It doesn't take rocket science here. You don't have to be a Homer Simpson to, figure this thing out. Is if you fill in 1 cubic meter of floodplain, and when the water comes, when the flood comes in, you've displaced 1 cubic meter of water, or 1,000 liters of water. I've done a calculation. I won't identify the 2 sites that that I did an evaluation. Of course, it's crude, so this is an approximate figure. It could be over, it could be under. But out of the 2 sites, what they've displaced is 200 million cubic liters of water from their activities, and that, my friends, has to create an effect. That water's got to go somewheres, and the other thing that we're dealing with is also, force. We're getting into Newtonian physics, and I'm not going to get sciencey on this particular video, but I will on a video that I will be producing in the next couple of weeks in regards to floodplain topography alteration via infill. So moving right along there, drop the camera a little bit, and you get, and if you look at the previous video that I put out yesterday, I guess now we're the 29th, would be the day before yesterday. So kind of a pan there, and that 2.13 meters is having an effect there, on the water levels. It's noticeable, except until you get into, like, in my area, which I'm just paused there. It's very difficult to tell between the 27th and the 28th, the levels, and it's just the way that the topography is. But if we had a 9-meter flood, there'd be water coming in my basement windows. If we have a 10-meter flood, it would get to the floor joists. So you can understand why I'm very concerned about this infill that's taking place. The magnitude of it, we're just not talking raising your house. We're talking hectares being filled in. And in the United States, there are some states that completely prohibit any tampering of floodplain topography. It's just a no-no, but it isn't here. And there's a bit of philosophy, I guess, involved in here. Is why should a few benefit at the expense of many? And by filling in the floodplain, I think I might have earlier touched onto it, is that you narrow the channel during the flood period, and that water's got to go back. It's got to go somewhere. And plus, like I said, I don't want to get into Newtonian physics here or into fluid dynamics, but you're going to get a back pressure. And, if everything, if it all were to be filled in, Fredericton, the city of Fredericton downtown, they'd have water. It would possibly would reach as far as the lower university gates on University Avenue. So I guess before I get tempted to get into the more sciencey part of floodplain alteration, I'll leave that for another videos. So thanks for hanging in there, and stay safe, take care, and last but not least, stay dry.